For centuries, Santoor has been
इंडिया में खाने को
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Sanatani, welcome you all to this session. Why do we need to do research and why do you need to pursue a postgraduate degree? Postgraduate degrees are a doorway to broader career choices. A MS or PhD degree helps students become experts in particular subject matters. This specialized expertise opens up additional career opportunities that a bachelor's degree cannot or would require several years of industrial experience to reach the same level. While conducting research is optional for masters, it is essential for PhDs. Most PhDs are required to solve a problem, develop a new method, or demonstrate an original idea, primarily via research. However, the decision of pursuing an MS or PhD and experience of MS in PhD research is not identical and uniform for everyone. It varies widely from person to person. But the curiosity and inquisitiveness to learn new knowledge and explore unknowns is part of human integrity. The talk will focus on broader aspect of research and postgraduate studies with personal anecdotes. Since research and PhD experience is heavily unique and personalized, I request you all to take this with a grain of salt. I would now like to introduce our guest, Mr. Sayan Biswas, who is currently working as the assistant professor in mechanical engineering at University of Minnesota. He completed his PhD in the year 2017 in aeronautics and astronautics at Purdue University. He is an experimental energy researcher and a passionate teacher. His research focuses on developing sustainable technologies for clean and efficient future energy, emphasizing low temperature plasma processes at elevated engine relevant pressures, reacting flows, advanced laser diagnostics, propulsion, microscale power generation, and computational fluid dynamics. I now request Professor Parag Savre sir to felicitate our guest. I now request Professor Sayan Biswas to address the gathering.
This is one of those rare occasions where I'm not using a presentation and I don't know what to do without that. So I have my notes, okay? Notes are good. Thank you so much, Professor Chowre, for the invitation. I really wanted to talk to the students, especially when I'm visiting in India, because, or maybe I'll come to that later. Okay. So, today I'm going to talk about something that is really close to my heart. Why to do research? And why do you need to pursue a higher education, right? When I was in your age, I was in your seat, I was confused. I did not know everything, right? I was in a dilemma because I got a job right after my undergraduate degree and the pay was good. So I had one comfortable life on one hand, and the other hand, I had this uncertain territory, right? And then you hear people saying all these things, their experiences, their nightmares, and you get confused even more, right? So again, that's a reason I wanted to tell that take my words with a grain of salt because that is my personal experience. Your experience may be different than that, right? It could be better than me, and it should be. I mean, you are great students, right? You love mechanical engineering. You are studying it for so long, third year and final year students. But before starting, I wanted to do a few housekeeping items, okay? Please raise your hand and stop me anytime if you want. This is not a lecture. This is more like a conversation. I'd like to know your perspective as well. So if you have any question, please stop me. And you can talk in any language actually. I mean, मी मराठी बोलू नाही शकत but समजला आते मतलब I understand it. Yeah. And yeah, when my Baiko is very angry on me, she starts speaking in Marathi. So I am good. I'm learning. So please speak in Marathi if you want. In Hindi, मुझे हिंदी बिल्कुल अच्छे से आता है. थोड़ा बहुत कन्नड़ा आता है, थोड़ा बहुत और भी दूसरा. But Hindi, English or Marathi, any language that like is comfortable with you, language shouldn't be a barrier. So please stop me anytime. Please ask questions. And remember one thing that even though I am standing here today, there was a time 16, yeah, between 12 and 16 years ago, I was in your seat, right? So I was confused as well. I was also in a dilemma. So if you're confused, that's good. Being confused is good. That means you're thinking. So ask any questions, stop me anytime, use any language as long as we understand. Even the other day I was in a restaurant where they're using sign language, right? Because that was a restaurant for all the deaf and dumb people they're serving you. So even I realized that even you can communicate without even, like you just use your hand and your gestures, your facial expression. So that should not be a barrier, okay? So please stop me anytime and ask questions. So before I start, I would like to know that how many of you are thinking of going to industry right after your bachelor's, and how many of you are planning to pursue higher education? Maybe how many of you are trying to go to industry right after? Yes, please show your hands. Very good, very good. So you're all trying to go to industry right after you graduate, right? Right after this degree ends. Okay. And how many of you are, if you're undecided, that's fine. Okay. And how many of you are like, you know that you're going to do higher education? Okay. Oh, that's an even split. Okay. So I'm in a good shape right now. Okay. I don't have to convince too much. Okay. That's great. Thank you. So this is something that I always, like when you think about research, right? Research is being defined on a very simple way. And I'll draw something. Thank you. You see this? Okay, thank you. So you see this strip between ignorance and knowledge. This strip is not that broad. It's a very thin strip. That is what research is. My mother, she's on WhatsApp. Everyone is on WhatsApp. She told me the other morning, you should eat 200 grams of curry leaves every morning. I said, why? And she said, you will stay healthy and good. Right? Now I have two choices. I can be completely ignorant and say, hey, you know what? I don't care. This is the ignorance part. And then I can be more curious and I say, what exactly do you have in curry leaves that makes you good? What are the chemical composition? How do they affect? What are the mechanism? All these things. If you start asking questions, then you're in this area, research. You can ask everything in your life, and either you can ignore it. I don't care. I don't need to know. That is ignorance. And anything that you ask to learn more, to create new knowledge, that is research. And the research cannot just be in science, but it's everywhere, right? In politics, in other aspects of life, in sociology, in psychology, everywhere. So the reason that I'm so much in love with research, because I get to ask questions, right? You just ask why, and somebody will give you an answer, right? And then you ask, okay, the next question, again and again, you can ask questions unless you get to the bottom of something. And that is beautiful, because as a human being, we are curious. We are curious about our relatives. We are curious about our neighbors. I'm also curious just about the world outside me. And I'm very much sure that you all are curious, because that is, by nature, we are designed by that. So that is the thing that I do for my profession, right? And same thing your professors are doing here as well, right? They're researching, they have a question, and they're trying to understand the question. They are asking more questions to do that. Now, three things that research is built on, and that is the most beautiful thing. The first one is the skepticism. I do not trust myself. Sometimes what happens is, when I'm trying to understand something, I'm looking for so long, I'm working for so long, sometimes in my oscilloscope, I start seeing signals. Because your brain wants to see that. And you have to be your own critic. You have to understand that your brain wants to see something that you are trying to look for so long. So you have to be skeptic. You have to ask yourself, is this something true or something else is going on? But the most beautiful part of research is that it is the most democratic thing in the world. You can be white, black, yellow, green. You can be tall, short, man, women. You can be 8 years old, 8 years old. But if you ask a question and somebody cannot answer you that, nobody is going to judge you where you are coming from. It is the most democratic thing. I do not know anything more democratic than research, right? And that is the beauty of it. That you can be on your own. As you start learning, as you start growing, you become more humble, you rediscover yourself, and then you realize that there are so many things that you do not know. And that makes you a really different human being. And that is the beauty of research, that it is democratic, you can reinvent yourself, and it's beautiful because you are learning something that nobody before you has seen, right? There are so many problems that you are solving that is impacting society. So on that, the reason that we do research, because we want to create a positive impact, right? We all write about it, we write essay on it, we want to change our society, we want to do this and that. But research is the true way, that this is one of the true ways actually, that you can make a positive impact. One of the biggest misconceptions about higher education that I have seen among students, whenever they think about masters or PhD, they think, oh, I'm getting a very specialized education. That means my chances of getting a job will get reduced, right? So you're thinking that now I know pretty much everything, but if I go and get specialized in machine design or manufacturing or in fluid dynamics, that means that my chances will get lower. Okay. Most of you, when you're going to retire, the job you will retire from does not exist today. I will give you few more seconds to take that in. When you retire, most of you, the job that you will retire from, that does not exist today. What does it mean? That means that you have to learn throughout your life. Without that, unless you are really rich, you'll be out of job. So you have to learn throughout your life. And what graduate school does, what higher education does, it helps you to shape you towards more learning. So when you are all getting your foundation done, right? You are all undergraduate student, your foundation, you are learning everything in mechanical engineering, all different discipline, right? You are jack of all trades. You kind of know how to do machine design and fluid dynamics and solid mechanics and design and control and everything else, right? As much you need to know to get your graduate degree. But as you choose one core area and learn more, when you do masters, you learn more about that subject. When you do PhD, you do not just solve one problem, you learn how to solve a problem. Now that is a transferable skill, right? If you know how to fix a motorcycle, then you can go and fix a car, you can go and fix a plane, and you can read little more and go and fix a submarine. That is the beauty of a PhD and masters and all the higher degrees. Because that gives you that ability. Now, if you go directly towards to an industry, if you go for a job after bachelor's, that is perfect. There is no wrong path. There is no wrong way, right? You go directly after industry for many reasons. You like it for other reasons, for financial reason, that's perfect. But one thing that you have in your hand right now that none of us, especially all the professors sitting in the front row, and I do have, and that is age. We are old, and we are getting old. You are young and fresh. Your brain is still developing. You have more persistence than me. If you really push me, what sometimes I do, I say, I tell my students, you go and figure it out. When I say that word, that means I've reached my limit. But when I was a grad student, I could spend hours and days and months on a single problem. And you do have that. You're young, and young means one more thing. You can make mistakes. Because you're young, you make mistakes. You have time to recover from it. I am professor, and if I lose my job, I don't know what to do. So because I do not have that much time to bounce back, right? But then you do have that. If one of your higher education experience does not go well, leave it. You go for something else. Age is on your favor. So one of the reasons that you do higher education is because, as I said, I want to go back and revisit the question that if you do MS or PhD, do you reduce your chances of getting a job? The answer is no, absolutely not. There is no scientific evidence, no statistical evidence that shows. I will counter-argue you that since you will be the only few people who knows how to solve a problem, that will effectively increase your demand, right? So there is no way you can say that, okay, that if I get more educated, if you get more educated, that will create other problems, but not getting a job. The second thing that you will get if you get higher education is your job satisfaction. The thing that you're going to do it with more authority, right? So if you start now, after your bachelor's, you start doing a job. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But if you do a master's or a PhD, yes, you will spend 3 or 4 or 5 years getting that degree, but where are you going to start from? From a different level, right? And in between that, you will gain perspective. You will realize, you will ask more questions before getting a job. So that will increase your job satisfaction. That's a really beautiful thing. Like, I did not know what professors do except that they teach. But when I wanted to be a professor, I researched more, right? So we are researching in our own way. We are asking questions or researching. So as you grow, you will see that if you get a degree, higher education, that will change your perspective, your questions will be different, and you will get more job satisfaction. So now I'm going to switch gear, and I'm going to talk about what most of you are interested, if you're interested in higher education, what we do and what my students are doing right now. So as I'm speaking, my students are working in the lab, right? My lab is Plasma Power Propulsion Lab. So we call it a 3P lab. If you have time or if you're interested, you can go and look up what we are doing, 3p.umn.edu. So I'm in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. We have 45 faculty members, and we have some fantastic professors and researchers in the department. We do work on cutting edge scientific technology, from fundamental research all the way to applied research. So what I do is plasma power propulsion. Now this name is big, right? So I'm going to give you example why I'm doing some of the research. So my wife and I have a long-standing debate. And the debate is, which mango is better? I'm from West Bengal. I think Himoshagar is better. She says Hapus. I said, Hapus is not better. Have you tasted Himoshagar? She says, no. And we have to come in summer to taste that mango. I cannot stay in summer more than 2 days. It's hot. I stay in Minnesota. It is cold state, one of the coldest state. And I like cold. Hot is too much for me. So I have to come from United States to here and stay here 2 days, settle the debate, and go back. Now from US to here, it takes 16 to 18 hours to one-way travel, right? So I travel 18 hours, come here, taste the mangoes, and probably my stomach will be upset for first couple of days, and then go back, right? It is challenging. One way to solve the problem, if we have faster airplanes, right? If you have supersonic airplanes, oh, that will be cool. You can travel from US to here within 4 hours. Now that is a possibility. Then we can come on a Friday, spend the time on weekend, settle the debate, and I'm sure Himoshagar is much better, and then go back on a Sunday evening. So what I'm doing, my students are doing, we are actually looking the shock dynamics. So this is the front part of the aeroplane. This is 6 to 8 degree wedge angle. And we have these shocks that we are generating, right? As we are flying at supersonic speed. So what we are trying, we have wind tunnel, we have this small model of this airplane. We are actually putting plasma in here, in this region. What is plasma? Plasma is the fourth state of matter. Solid, liquid, gas, plasma. Where do you see plasma? Everywhere. Look at these lights, they are plasma. My watch, plasma. Your phone, you have plasma. Everywhere you have plasma. 99.9% observable universe is made with plasma. So what we are doing, we are putting a little bit of plasma in here, and plasma is putting a little bit of energy, tiny energy, that can move the shock. So if you design a good system, a good plasma generation system, then you can actually move the shock, and the shock is bad because they can destroy the engine. And that's all, you solve the problem. And you say, oh, this is so simple, then why people have not done it? Great question. Thank you asked. Now, what you can do, you can use the plasma to solve this problem, but you know that when you generate plasma, you generate electromagnetic field around it. Now, when you go on an airplane, they ask you to switch your cell phone. Why? Because it creates this EMF. They can actually change the navigation system. They can interfere with that. Nobody is going to let me use a big plasma system on this. So you have to make the plasma system small, less electromagnetic field around it, and then you can solve the problem. So the solution is there. We don't know how to use it, right? We have to make the system better. So my students are doing it. And why we're doing it? What is the incentive? So that we can transfer people cross-Atlantic, cross-Pacific in a small fraction of a second, like in a small fraction of time. So that is one of the areas that I'm working on. Another area that I'm working on is another project that I'm working on. We are working on mostly energy-related project. So another example that I want to give you. Is the fuel. So we all know that fossil fuel is bad, right? Why? Because you are burning fossil fuel, you're releasing carbon dioxide, and that's bad. That is trapping the greenhouse, that is trapping the sun, heat from the sun, and that's a greenhouse gas, and that's bad. Now, electrification is only good, a battery can only help if that electricity is coming from renewable source. If it is again coming from coal or oil, then you are not solving the problem. You're just hiding the problem, right? So what we are doing, one of my colleague and I, we are partnering to create something called synthetic fuel. What is it? We are capturing carbon dioxide from the air. We are using renewable energy, renewable electricity from wind or solar, and doing electrolysis and combining with water and creating these new fuel molecules. But this is the first time we are optimizing the fuels. Fossil fuels are God-given, right? You're digging from the earth, you're using it, but this is the first time you're optimizing the fuel. If I tell my colleague that I need one more hydrogen on this carbon, he would be able to do that. Now, he created all these 1,000 different types of fuel, a promising fuel, potential fuels, and then I'm using that and seeing which fuel has more promise. Now, when we burn these fuels, we release carbon dioxide. But which carbon dioxide? The ones that we captured in the first place. So these are called net carbon fuel. They do not increase the carbon footprint of us. So that is synthetic fuel, and that is something that we can use for next 100 years. By the time other technologies like solar and wind can also get big and the matches. So these are some of the example projects that we are doing. We are doing some other project like fundamentals of plasma. What happens when you have plasma at a really high pressure, right? We want to understand that. So the problems of this kind of research starts with a simple question. Okay, sometimes even like the other day we went to, I went to this Marathi event, and they were doing kite flying, and I wanted to fly kite, right? Then I realized I'm a really terrible kite flyer. The kite is hard to fly. I mean, you cannot throw the kite and it will immediately go up. No, it takes wind, it takes practice, and it takes mastery. I'm not a master of flying kite, but I'm an engineer. I can make something that all these people who are trained, I can build them. So what I told my students, can you make a flight that does not require a stringless kite? So we are actually right now designing a propulsion system, and this is a remote control propulsion system. There will be a small fan, then we are going to fly a kite, but this kite is not going to fly like an airplane. Kite flies in its own way, right? It has this beautiful shape when it's fly, so I want to retain that aerodynamics. So my students are designing this. These are some of the pet projects we have on the side, and we learn from these things, right? And we need materials for that. We need like a carbon fiber material to reduce weight. We need instead of paper, we have to use other forms of fabric to make it work. So all these things. So ideas sometimes are crazy, sometimes they sound stupid, but that's why grad schools are for. That's why even sometimes I feel that I am more like a glorified graduate student. I'm always asking questions, trying to look for things, and all the professors actually are like that. I mean, sometimes they have to be strict because they have to manage the students like you, right? You're good students. I'm not saying that, but we have to manage students like you. So sometimes that's. But inside that, there is this kid, right, with these questions and these things that we want to learn more. We want to understand things, how the system is working, how everything is going on. So I'm going to stop here because my time ends. But I'd love to know your thoughts, your questions, anything that I can help you answer and maybe reduce your confusion and dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Rohini Sangle to give us the vote of thanks. Okay, does anybody have any questions? You can go ahead and ask.
When there is no question, that means either I have done an excellent job or I have done a terrible job. Yes, please. How did? It's a very good question, actually. So, the question is how the carbon is extracted from the environment and where it is stored, right? Sorry, where it is stored. How it is stored. So this carbon, you probably know the composition of air, right? Like we have 21%, 20.95, 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen, little less than that, and carbon is very small. Right now, the carbon is carbon dioxide is around, I don't know here, but in US it is 416 parts per million. That's a really small amount, right? Around 450 probably everywhere around the globe. We capture that carbon dioxide. So we take air and then we reduce the temperature, and that actually separates oxygen, and then you have some other membranes that separate nitrogen, and the rest we have argon, carbon dioxide. Before that we already take out all the aerosols and particles, and that way we can capture carbon dioxide. And we actually can store the carbon dioxide in two ways. As a carbonate, CO3, carbonate is a limestone, right? They're like solid, in the solid form. Or we can store it in water as a weak acid, like carbonic acid. Generally, people like to store in water because it's fluid, it flows. So whenever you flow it, and then you can heat it up, and it will release carbon dioxide. So for now, we are storing as a carbonic acid. And the good thing is that you have a lot of reaction that happens in liquid form, right? So if you're using this carbon dioxide to react with water and create other forms of fuel and other like hydrocarbons, then the best way is to store in liquid. So we store both liquid as well as solid form. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
So I had a question. What would you recommend? Should we go immediately for a master's after graduation, or get some industry experience?
That's a very good question. And again, I don't think I'll be able to answer that, but I can give you some perspective that'll help you take your decision. So the question is that after your graduation, should you go for directly masters, or should you gain some industry experience and then go for masters? Both has some positive and I should not say positive, rather both has advantage and disadvantage, right? One of the things that is really important in graduate school is writing and managing project, right? If you go to industry, you gain those experience. You are managing people, right? You'll be working with some really difficult people. Now that's a really good important thing. Now you can use that experience in your grad school. But again, the question is, if you spend 3 to 4 years in industry, would you be really able to go back and live a poor student's life? That's the question, right? Like you will get less salary. You will have all these things. You cannot eat outside food so many times because your salary is less. So all these things are going to like come in your mind, and then there is a inertia that also comes, right? Like as you're doing industry, you get very comfortable, and people don't like to get out of their comfort zone. So it's up to you that what you want to do. I think I have seen both ways. So for example, I have a student, um, um, he came right after graduate school. He did not have any master's degree. He's doing direct PhD. So another thing is actually you can do direct PhD as well. After bachelor's, you can directly enroll in PhD, and within 3 to 4 years, if you're doing a good work, you should get your terminal degree. So, and then I have another student who has done 7 years of industrial experience. And I can clearly see the difference in communication. This young student is enthusiastic, but his writing and other things are slightly different. They're not that great. He's going to learn, right? But the other student, he's very organized. Like his thought process is organized. Everything is like, he will write down everything like, within this week, I'm going to finish this. Within this, I'm going to do this. So I think both are possible if you're interested. But one more thing that is going to happen, and that is one of my professors told me. There will be a point in life you will realize, I cannot do this work anymore. You'll say, nope, that's it, and then you're going to switch your profession. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. Sure. Any other question, anything? Yeah, I'll be happy to. Yeah.
I have a general question.
Yeah.
Being a professor, you must be receiving large number of applications, your university, grad application or PhD application. So how university selects a student?
That's a very good question. So, for example, when you are looking for a position, by the way, actually, anywhere it is, like in United States or in India, India has some fantastic researchers. I think the theoretical research in India is so good, and the students are so motivated. Many times, even in United States, they don't have that. So, if I have to do theoretical research, I'll probably look for like Indian institutions, like Indian Institute of Science, IISc, right, in Bangalore, IITs, NITs. They're a great researcher everywhere. So if you like someone's work, and how do you know about them? You do Google search, right? And again, we are curious people. We want to know what's happening with our neighbors, with our friends. So you can always search in internet. You find all the information of different professors, different programs, and then you just send them an email. Like send them an email, and most of the time, and if you do not get a response, don't feel bad, because most of the time professors do not respond, not because they don't want to respond, rather they don't have time to respond. So if you do not, I'm sorry, sometimes even like when I'm traveling, I'm getting emails and I'm not responding all of them, right? Because they are not on my priority list. Because otherwise my wife might get angry on me. So, but don't get disheartened. Yeah. So please write email to professors, and then once the professor says something, or if you like a program, directly submit your application. How the university chooses the students is, there is a committee that actually decides what are the criteria. The grad school already set one set of criteria, right? For example, the GRE score right now, most of the US institution, if not all, I'm not saying if not all because I'm not sure, but I know most of the US institution, they're not looking at GRE score at this moment because of the COVID, after COVID. So they're looking at your statement of purpose. What they're looking at the statement of purpose is how good your writing is, right? English writing, because you have to start writing in your grad school. Then there will be your GPA, your grade point average, right? And then your other extracurricular things, and then overall thing. Then one, like a committee is going to decide which student they're going to give admission to. But if you already know a professor and the professor likes you, that's all. I mean, you will get admission very easily. But please write, and if you're interested, please send me an email. I'll be happy to talk to you if you're interested in my research. But there are many other professors in our department, in other universities, right? In the United States or in India. They're doing great work. So, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
This is about admissions. What about funding and how students should? Because that is also an important aspect.
Yeah, very good question. So, generally, at the University of Minnesota, in our department, all the PhD students who get admission, they get departmental fellowship. all the PhD students who get admission, they get a departmental fellowship. What does that mean? 1 year, 1 full year, the department is going to provide you full assistantship. And why do they do that? Because so that you get time to see and interact with all the professors and choose the right professor. So you have 1 year to choose the professor. In many other universities, they have the similar thing. And then when the professors are like recruiting PhD students, they ensure that they have money, they have external funding or some sort of research assistantship or teaching assistantship to support you. PhDs, they generally, most of the time, they are, if not, most of the time, they're fully funded. The funding for masters is slightly challenging because of simple reason, right? Like you will be staying there for 2 years, and most of the external projects are for 3 years, right? And within the first year, you will be taking courses, so you're not much useful to research. So only the second year master student do a lot of research, but then the project requires you to stay longer, right? But then there are projects which are for 2 years. In those projects, it's very easy to get, if the professor likes you, it is very easy to get a scholarship. And sometimes even without like research assistantship, there are so many other things happening in the university, like the mathematics tutoring, right? The other teaching assistantship in other department. If you're willing, if you're talking to people, if you're reaching out to your to different department, different professors, it is not challenging. It is very much possible to get funding. Yeah, it's not that difficult. Yeah. Yes.
So what is the difference between an MS and an MTech degree, and what kind of thought processes do they both develop?
So I'll talk about the University of Minnesota. We have, so what you're talking about is different types of master's degree, right? So we have 2 types of master's degree. One is called Plan A, Plan B. Instead of calling them MS and MTech, they don't discriminate on that. They call MS, but then they don't write it, but generally they're Plan A and Plan B. So what is Plan A? You have to do a thesis, and thesis has a certain credit, right? So if you do thesis, that means you're spending most of your time in research, then that means you're doing less coursework. So you have to do, and don't quote me, but I think 5 or 6 courses and then 1 research thesis. That means you have to write the thesis, you have to defend it, and then you get your degree. But then if you're not doing any thesis, then you have to do 30 credit, which is 10 courses, right? 3 credit each course. So that means you have to take 10 courses in how many years? It can be 1 year, it can be 1.5 years, it can be 2 years, and then you get a master's degree. So it depends on how you want to do it. Yeah. And most of the US schools, they have this Plan A and Plan B, like with thesis and not with thesis. But then if you want to get assistantship from a professor, from a department, generally they prefer Plan A with thesis, right? Because you're working with someone, then they have the motivation to give you the funds. Yes, you have. And yes, please, yeah.
What can be some key dimensions in someone's resume, like a candidate's resume, that can stand out apart from the GPA?
Apart from the GPA, what are some of the other things that stand out? I can tell you mine, what I see first. A nicely formatted resume. It's easy to read. Somebody knows where, like, if I have to find an information with a lot of, like, I have to put a lot of time to find that, then I'm generally discouraged. But organization, I think, is one of the key things. If you're really nicely organized, if your writing in English is good, no spelling mistakes, anything, right? If you have written if you have done any project, right? If you write those down, then those are good. That means you're interested, you have done something. Yeah, those are some of the things. And then you will be surprised how, like, what people, so when you have this admission committee meeting, because I'm in the admission committee, so we like all our colleagues, we are discussing things. You will be surprised what are the small things that people actually pick up. Because professors are very perfectionist, and they're eccentric as well, right? So they see things which other people don't. Like if you make a straight line and if your center dot is not aligned, I have trouble. I see that and then I say, oh, this is not good. So make sure you spend time. If you spend time, I can understand and most of the professor can understand that you have spent time. So when you are doing something, spend time on that. Any other question?
Sir,
Yes.
is there any integrated kind of programs available here?
So every department has integrated program and they prefer it because that means the same master student who are going through that process, they're also getting PhD, right? Generally, many times they do have a program, but they do not announce it that much, right? There are two things actually, like for example, University of Minnesota has two such programs. One is called Integrated Interdisciplinary Project, right? Many of you must be interested in robotics. Now, mechanical does a lot of robotics, but at the same time, electrical engineering does a lot of robotics as well. So they hire student in this multidisciplinary program where you have two different advisors. Both are co-advising the same student. And you can enroll in this kind of program and then you can work with both the professor and you get degree in one of the department that you choose finally, right? But there are these kind of like integrated program where you start with your masters and then you do your PhD after that in the same. In that way, you save your time, right? Because most of the time you spend in your PhD is to formulate the problem. What is the problem that you want to solve? If that problem is being formulated in your masters, then you have to solve it in your PhD. So within, like, it is going to automatically reduce the time, the time period that you need. So, no, yeah, there are programs, and if you have any question, you can always email the professor, or there is a graduate coordinate in every university, every department. So we have a graduate coordinator, right? And that person is not a professor. Like they answer all the questions and all the incoming graduate or a potential graduate student has. So and you can find this thing under the staff. So if you go to University of Minnesota, mechanical engineering and staff, under the staff a tab, then you will see who is the graduate coordinator for our department, and send them an email saying that, hey, you are planning to apply to UMN. Is there any this kind of program available? I'm doing this. I'm looking for a funding, and don't hesitate talking about funding. I mean, nobody works without money. If they don't pay me money, I'll not do my work. Okay, so there is no shame in asking for funds. There is always ask that what are the opportunities available, how can I get this, and what are the programs that is available. They will help you. Yeah, and especially after COVID, everyone knows how to use Zoom, right? So say that, hey, can I talk to you for 15 minutes over Zoom? Yeah, and then ask all your questions, because it's not easy to ask so many questions over email. So just have a quick Zoom session and then ask all the questions. Yeah. But that's a fantastic question. Any other question that I can? And reach out to professors. I know it is not easy. When I was in your seat, I remember like there is this like fear, right? There is this hindrance that that you feel that, okay, I have to write something to someone. No, like generally the professor, like if somebody says and like sends me an email and says that I have read your this paper, oh, I get really happy. I think anybody like who's sends, like if somebody sends you an email saying, oh, you have done this and I have read about it, you will feel happy. That's a human nature, right? So before you write an email, see what that professor is doing. Saying that, hey, I'm also interested in this. We are not expecting that you will know everything, right? You're interested, that's all. That's all you need to know. And then you can have a quick Zoom session with the professor as well. And if the professor and you feel that it's a good match, then you can work with them. It's in the United States a very informal way of getting like an advisor. I mean, if you like someone, if someone likes you, it's a very easy way. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned about plan A and plan B.
Right.
Plan A is with thesis.
With
So
thesis, yeah.
obviously it must have been research oriented.
Research oriented,
The
yeah.
inclination is towards research, and plan B is more related to courses. Is it that if somebody has to proceed to PhD after masters,
Mhm.
obviously plan A is preferable for that line. But
Right.
is it that plan B has closed the doors, doesn't have opportunity to go, or still they can?
That's a very good question. So if you go for plan A or plan B, like if you go for plan B, which is mostly coursework, does that close all the doors for you for PhD? Absolutely not. Yeah, in fact, I have one student right now who went through plan B, and and, and and I think he has 4 out of 4. So we have like 4 scale. So he has like full score, and extremely good, right? Because in that plan B, you are learning so many new courses, right? So that is also another asset. In fact, there are so many industries. So that's another thing I did not talk about. That what after PhD, right? Like like students do after PhD. Most of the students, they do not go in academia. Rather, they go in industry, and they go in R&D of all those different companies, research and development sector, right? So all big companies, they hire PhDs, right? And that's another big thing, that you can do research, and you can see how your research is affecting the millions of people's lives. I mean, you can directly see that by doing PhD and go R&D towards like after that. But with any types of masters you do, any types of experience, even industry experience, as I said that like we have students in our department who is coming uh, after like even like 10 years of industry experience. So we actually value that. I mean, that is rare to have, but yeah, that's
So
very,
the doors are open. You say.
doors are always open. Yeah. And maybe I'll share a short story with you. So when I was doing my graduate study, I was a master's student at the University of Connecticut. Um, we used to see that there is this email always being copied. My professor is copying this email, um, and we have never seen that person, right? So then one day I saw that person. He was a 65-year-old retired Navy engineer who never got a chance to do PhD. So he is doing PhD at the age 65. So your door is never closed. I mean, if you want to do a degree, if you want to learn more, I mean, degree is one thing. Degree is just a piece of paper, right? But the true thing is that what you are learning. So that is never closed. Yeah. So even sometime I think that maybe I should get another PhD in biology. It's so beautiful. Like the way that people like taught biology in our schools, like you have to remember so many things. That's not like that. So one of my undergraduate students, he's working on a nanoparticle called super paramagnetic nanoparticle. So what these particles do, um, if you have cancer, we all first you have chemotherapy, and then you have to do radiation therapy, right? But the bad thing about radiation is that it does not discriminate between normal healthy cells and bad cells. So it kills all of them. That's why your hair goes away, right? So that is not a good thing. So what these nanoparticles can do, these super paramagnetic nanoparticle, they are regular nanoparticle. They do not attract to magnet. But then, if you put a really high frequency alternating current, like a megahertz or high frequency current, then they start showing magnetic property and they get heat up. So you can actually send a small capsule or inject something in the tumor and then put that person in a big MRI machine where you have an alternating current going through that person. So that will heat up all those particles and kill the tumor. So I don't know anything about biology, right? But then one of my students want to do on magnetic nanoparticles, super paramagnetic. So we actually end up making all those particles, synthesizing those particles, characterizing them, see them under the microscope, how they're looking, test them in somewhere, and now we are sending this particle to another lab where they're going to test them in mice, right? Yeah. So now I want to learn more about biological stuff. So learning never ends. Yeah. Yes.
So here it says you completed your master's in Connecticut and
Yes.
you finished your PhD in Purdue in aeronautics. So how did that switch happen, or did you already priorly have knowledge about aeronautics in your master's by doing it?
That's a very good question. So my bachelor's and master's is in mechanical engineering, and my PhD is in aeronautics and astronautics. So I always wanted to do like PhD after my master's, but I wanted to do from a good program, from a good school, right? And I was applying to all the different divisions in mechanical engineering, in aerospace engineering, and what I realized actually that I wanted to understand and do more work on propulsion, and Purdue has a really good propulsion program. So I worked in something, my lab was Zucro Labs at Purdue, and that was the largest academic propulsion lab in the world. So that's naturally was one of my, like, on the list. But I applied everywhere. I think I applied more than like 25 to 30 schools, and I only got few acceptance. So that's another thing, like you will get a lot of rejections, and that's fine. Yeah. In fact, you should not get all accepted, because then you'll be so confused. So, and then Purdue was one of the good schools, and one of my professor during my master's, he graduated from Purdue, and he said that go to Purdue, you will study. And I said, why? And he said, it's the middle of nowhere. There's nothing else to do other than study, right? It's in the middle of cornfield. So I took the advice. I went there and did my PhD. So that's another thing that you like. I have PhD student who has done undergraduate in physics. I have another student who has done undergraduate in chemical engineering, and I have another student who's right now the major is robotics, even though I don't want to work on directly on robotics. So which background you are coming from and which direction you are going, that actually, I mean, you can relate that. If you're interested in material science, you can actually apply to material science. If you're interested in chemistry, you can apply to chemistry. So that those kind of like divisions, that which department you came from and where you want to go, that is not very, like, you can switch things.
So, but before applying, were you priorly ready, and did you have the knowledge, or after you joined, you gained it like from scratch? Or how did it happen?
So that's another good question. I did not know anything about aeronautics and astronautics. When I joined, and I had a hard time passing the qualifying exam. And my professor told me that either you pass or we are not working. So so I had this pressure of passing that. So you have to give a qualifying exam, right? After you gain admission in the department for PhD, not for masters. So I had to study propulsion. I had to study aerodynamics. I knew fluid dynamics, but I did not study aerodynamics that much. So I had to study all those. But that's another beautiful thing, right? If you know fluid dynamics, then learning aerodynamics is not that difficult, right? If you know chemistry, if you know high-speed aerodynamics, then you can easily learn propulsion, right? But you have to gain, like, because they're talking different ways, so you have to spend some time to like understand their language. But it's not that difficult. So, if you're interested in material science, you should go for material science. It will take you some time, but again, the professors will understand that. Like so professors talk among themselves, right? They will not judge you the same way they judge someone who has done undergraduate in material science. So they will understand that you are coming from a different background. They understand your limitations. So they will so it will be a fair judgment at the end of the day.
Yes, we're done. Thank you for such an insightful talk, sir. I now request Rohini Sangle to give us the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all. I am Rohini Sangre. On behalf of all students and staff, I am glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. A special thanks to our chief guest, Professor Sayan Biswas and Aditi Joshi. Thank you for giving insight about why we need to do research and why we need a postgraduate degree. Also, I would like to express my gratitude to our department for arranging this session. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all of you for attending this session. Thank you all. Have a good day.